Exactly.
Despite all the issues that you said, or that you've just said, Emmanuel Boni reports on the front page of a daily graphic that the president, Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, has said that the economy is charting a course of recovery and resilience, driven by robust performances across construction, industry, agriculture, consumer demand, and tourism. He said recent data estimating the provisional GDP growth at 6.9% in the second quarter of the year demonstrated a dynamism of the Ghanaian economy, with non-oil GDP growth of 7.0%, further reinforcing the strength of the nation's economic fundamentals. And speaking to an audience of financial experts, policymakers, international guests in Accra yesterday, President Akufo-Addo alluded to the sharp reduction in inflation from a staggering 54.1% in 2022 to 22.1% as of October 2024. Quote, recent data from the Bank of Ghana paints a picture of resilience and promise. On the external front, President Akufo-Addo pointed out that the country recorded a trade surplus of $2.78 billion at the end of the first half, buoyed by robust gold and crude oil exports. The nation's international reserves stand at $7.5 billion, providing a critical buffer against external shocks. He attributed achievements to the prudent stewardship of the Bank of Ghana, emphasizing its indispensable role in navigating global uncertainties and fostering economic growth. Quote, these achievements reflect the bank's unalloyed commitment to sound monetary and financial policies. And the president noted that a downward trend in inflation, coupled with reducing prices of food and petroleum products, signaled a brighter economic future. And he emphasized the broader impact of the gains, including improved confidence among investors and enhanced opportunities for domestic and international stakeholders. And he's called on Ghanaians to remain optimistic and united in their pursuit of inclusive and sustained growth. And he made these observations when he inaugurated a new head office complex of the central bank located at the Ambassadorial Enclave at Ridge, which has been christened the Bank Square.
Well, Doc, the young men these days say, Kasai and Frama, talk is air. You see, this president we have is known for one thing, empty talk.
He's giving you data.
Data?
Yes.
That data is not current data. I
Why?
have current data.
Which one is current?
Okay.
He's speaking to
So-
second Q2.
Oh,
He's speaking
no, you
to
don't
October
decide.
inflation.
You see, you don't decide whether the economy is experiencing a rebound or recovery with just one economic matrix. And
He referred to inflation, not
okay,
just
so
one.
let's talk about inflation. Okay,
Inflation.
inflation.
He spoke about inflation. He spoke about reducing price of food and petroleum products. He spoke about confidence, improved confidence among investors. He spoke about trade surplus, 2.78 billion.
No,
he spoke
let's
about
go step
international
by step.
reserves.
Inflation, number one. Today, 3 hours ago, breaking news. Producer price of inflation. Producer price of inflation.
PPI.
I'm not talking about, yeah.
PPI.
Not the consumer.
PPI.
Let's start with the producer price index, the PPI. It has increased. We are being told this morning that it has increased from 30.5 to 33%. This is this morning. Even the CPI has increased in the last 2 consecutive months. It's been on an upward trajectory. You see, this government took over an economy with an inflation rate of 15.4%. Anything higher than that is worse than what was bequeathed to them, which they berated whilst in opposition. But that the rate is not even as worrying as a trend. If, for example, because with the 15.4 inflation we bequeathed to the MPP, it was on a downward trajectory. For the last 6 months of December 2016, inflation kept going down. And that is why when they took office, without even reading their budgets, in January, February, March, inflation kept going down. So for me, apart from the rates of inflation, one thing I look out for is the trajectory of inflation. Is it going downwards or upwards? If it's going downwards, then the president is right that we are seeing recovery.
But is that not the point he's making? He says that from a high of 54 in 2022, we have dropped to 22% as of October.
But what he fails to admit is that in the last 2 months, the trajectory of inflation rate in Ghana has been upwards. That's the point. This is a story published by Reuters, dated November 6, 2024. And it says, Ghana inflation rises for second month in October. So Ghana's consumer inflation rose for the second month in a row in October to 22.1%, year on year from 21.5% in September. So inflation is rising again for 2 consecutive months. And that cannot be a sign of recovery. It's simple. It cannot be a sign of recovery. The exchange rate. We saw...
He didn't speak about exchange rate.
But Akufo-Addo has told us that he's handicapped when it comes to economic management. In opposition, he said that Sidina hata. And that is why he has brought a young man called Bawumia, because it was under Kufuor's era, this Bawumia was the one who helped him manage the scene. So, when it comes to economic management, everybody agrees that Akufo-Addo defers to Bawumia. Even at Ayawaso West Wagon by-election, last campaign rally of the MPP, Akufo-Addo said publicly on stage that Bawumia is the man endowed with all the wisdom in the world. And this Bawumia says that the most important barometer or matrix for measuring the health of any economy is what? The exchange rate. So if Akufo-Addo says the economy is showing signs of recovery, let's go and look at what Bawumia, his economic wizkid, economic messiah, economic consultant and advisor, says is the most important indicator. And that is the exchange rate. And look, today you need more than 16 Ghana cedis to get $1 US. How on earth can anybody argue or say that this represents recovery? The exchange rate is getting worse and worse by the day. Today it is 15, tomorrow it is 15.5. You go there the following week, it is 16. Not too long ago, it rose to 17. It went all the way up to 17.2, 17.4, 17.5. It came down again marginally. It is going up again. How can businesses plan in such an unstable monetary economic environment? How can businesses plan when inflation is increasing and has been on this increasing trajectory in the last 2 months? Put the exchange rate aside and the damage it is doing to the capital of businesses and livelihoods in general, the hardships and suffering it is imposing on Ghanaians. Put that aside. Look at our debt situation. As we speak, Ghana is still a bankrupt nation.
Why?
We are still a bankrupt nation because we have not suspended DDEP and the external debt restructuring we are doing.
I don't understand what you're saying.
Look, what I mean is that as we speak, we are still in a state where debt obligations owed us have been suspended. That's what I mean. So, those who have invested in government bonds, who are supposed to be paid their monies today, cannot have access to their monies.
We're paying them.
No, they have been told what they are being paid is not what they ought to be paid.
Yeah, but that's the agreement.
But that agreement signifies one thing. The reason for that agreement is because we are bankrupt. If today...
No, we were bankrupt.
Okay.
And that is why...
We did that. And so long
by
as...
doing that,
yes,
we have been forgiven like some 12 billion.
Yes.
And over. And then...
$12 billion.
12 billion, I think.
Yes.
And then there is a rescheduling of quite a lot of payments.
And I'm saying...
So, as we speak,
yeah,
we have moved from a bankrupt one, where we are unable to pay our debts, to a situation where we can manage.
No, let me burst your bubble. Number one, even with all that, and I don't think we've been forgiven $12 billion. I think we have expropriated $12 billion from people who have invested in government bonds. That's what we have done.
I will not argue.
Exactly. But Doc, the most important thing is that, number one, even with that, debt to GDP is still above the acceptable threshold. Even with that. That is why if you look at the IMF program, they only project that our debt to GDP ratio, which is one of the indicators of how sustainable the debt position of every nation is, they project that we will get to that level somewhere around 2026, 2028. Because as we speak, debt to GDP is still above 70%. And that cannot be sustainable. When John Mahama was leaving office, debt to GDP was 56%. And even that, they said, we're borrowing too much. So if you have, after expropriating $12 billion, your debt to GDP ratio is still above 70%, then where is the recovery? And look, even aside that, my point is, so long as debt restructuring is still in force, it's not as though after expropriating the $12 billion of people who had earned monies, lifetime savings, we have suddenly become solvent and we are now paying our debt obligations. It's not like that. So still, we are not out of the woods. Our debt position is still bad. You understand? Yeah, the last time when I was here, I was talking about interest rates, and my colleague on the other side was disputing it. I later found that today, the lending rate for certain facilities is 33, 35, 36%. And the president is talking about recovery. Recovery when unemployment is on the rise. So but what is he measuring it with? Trade surplus. What is trade surplus? So we get more oil today or as a result of the work done by the previous government, which has added 2 additional oil fields to the one that the NDC got from President Akufo. You have 10 Sankofa fields, even though you have managed to reduce production volumes by 32% as a result of your bad policies for the upstream sector and the hostilities you've meted out to players in that sector. Yet, oil production is higher than it was 8 years ago, because there was a president once upon a time called John Mahama who decided to invest in our hydrocarbon assets and give us 2 additional oil fields. So if you export more than you import and you get a surplus, how is that an achievement? We didn't start getting that surplus today. Once oil production went up astronomically in 2017, the oil and gas sector grew by 84% on account of the work John Mahama and the NDC had done. Nobody disproves that. The IMF, the World Bank, the EIU, they all concede that. Okay. How is that surplus a sign of recovery? Because this is not the first time we are having that surplus. And it is not a new phenomenon, number one. And it is also not as a result of anything this government has done. It is not attributable to any policy of this government. How is that a sign of recovery? In any case, how does that translate into improved livelihoods for the ordinary Ghanaian, who today has to buy 1 ball of kenke in Accra at 5 cedis? Because the jacket around the kenke is bigger than the kenke. You understand? The Ghanaian who has to buy 7 Ghana cedis kenke today, and after eating it, he still feels like he has not eaten. You are saying that person is seeing a sign of recovery? So, hold on. So my point is, so long as the rate of unemployment is not getting better, the rate of inflation is not getting better, the debt position of Ghana is still in a bad state, the exchange rate is getting worse by the day, and businesses cannot plan, businesses are collapsing as a result of that, so long as the tax burden imposed, the high tax burden, I must say, imposed on suffering Ghanaians and businesses by this government has not reduced, you can't say the economy is seeing any recovery. If anybody is seeing any recovery, then it is the people who are enjoying the largesse of government. Akufo-Addo, who his daughters, are benefiting from the largesse of state through $34 million ambulance deals. You can say you are seeing signs of recovery. You understand? But certainly not the ordinary Ghanaian who is struggling to make ends meet this morning. Those nurses who have been through school for years are waiting posting. The professional allied workers listening to me today, They completed school. Some of them 5 years, 4 years, 3 years ago. They don't have any jobs. And then you are talking about recovery. No. I don't see any recovery. Things are only getting worse. And the Ghanaian is discerning. The Ghanaian knows that. The one who goes to the market feels that if you go to the market today, prices are going up. There is nothing indicating a recovery, but rather a worsening of our livelihoods. And that is why I know that majority of the Ghanaian electorate will kick out this failed, this insensitive and corrupt Akufo-Addo Bawumia NPP government on 7 December.